everybody. Welcome back to Stories with Bree. I'm super excited about my guest today. Her name is Jasmine Washington, and she is going to share a little bit about herself. Please, Jasmine, introduce yourself to the podcast.
So, like she said, my name is Jasmine Washington. I am currently a library program specialist with the Harris County Public Library. I would say I've roughly worked in libraries for about, I think it's been about 3.5 years, I believe. And that's counting my part-time experience.
Mhm.
And right now I am in school and I'm working towards getting my degree, like my MLS, so that I can become like a full-fledged librarian.
Yes, I'm so excited for you. What school do you attend, if you don't mind sharing?
I am going to the University of North Texas.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I went to UIUC. I graduated from well, it was called Gislis when I went, and now it's called iSchool. But I graduated in 2016. So I've been a professionally degree librarian now. It'll be 6 years. Wow, in May. Um,
Oh my gosh.
Yes, yes. And so I'm currently in a paraprofessional position as well. So I work as a technician, but I am actively applying for librarian jobs and digitalization jobs and stuff like that. So focal points of interest and things of that nature. But I'm super excited that you decided to be a guest on the podcast because it's not only just for librarians, but I remember when you asked me, you was like, well, are you taking library students? Absolutely, because I really want this podcast to also show as a point of advocating for
Mhm.
people that look like us, Black librarians, people that look like us, people of color, to know that this is a field that you can actually, thrive in, be in, and you can go to school for it. And because we need more people that look like us that are placed strategically in these different communities and things of that nature. So I'm super excited to talk to you for the next hour and to get to know you better. So I like to start the podcast off with icebreakers. And so the first icebreaker that I always ask everybody that comes on is, if you can remember, what was your favorite childhood book?
Um, so I would say that's kind of hard for me because it's hard for me to say what my favorites are because I usually have a group of them.
Mhm.
Um, I think the things I remember just reading from my childhood were like the Magic Tree House series.
Okay.
Um I remember reading a lot of Dr. Seuss because I still I grew up with my grandparents. So I still have the little box set that they got for me.
Okay.
I remember that. I don't know if anyone remembers that there was, I don't think it's still around. There's a children's magazine, it's called Highlights. Um
I think I know
and
what you're talking about.
yeah, Highlights. And so they used to offer these books that you could subscribe to. It was kind of it was like the subscription box before what it is now.
Yeah.
They would send you it would be like chapter books, and I remember I would just be reading through those, and it'd be all these different stories and things like that. um I feel like the book that I feel like I now always refer to now is it's called Amazing Grace. I believe the author is Mary Hoffman. But I love that book. I still have it. I kept that book because I'm hoping to pass it on to my
Yeah.
future kids. Because it was one of those books where I saw myself in it. Because you have this little Black girl, she's with her mom, but then she also has her grandmother there too, that's
Yeah.
also in the household. So that I feel that resonated with me, being raised by my grandparents. And
Mhm.
then it was just the fact that she had this just active imagination. And I mean, when I was younger and even still now, I just remember there would be days I'd just be sitting there just daydreaming about things.
Yeah. Same. And we actually have something in common in that regard. I was raised by my grandmother as well. So
Okay.
super excited to know that. I love to sometimes connect with people like that. Because I mean, in the Black community, it's not a far cry away that we would be connected to our grandparents in that regard, and them to be either very active in our lives or be almost a secondary parents. I like to say that I have a triangle parental instead of a circle. I have a triangle where my grandmother is kind of the pivotal moment at the top, which is my dad's mom, and then I have my mother and my father. So I have a triune parental system, and of course I have my village outside of that. But the primary parent for me was not actually my parents who birthed me,
Mhm.
my grandmother. And so I was raised by a single grandmother. So I definitely, there's a special place in my heart for those people, for those of us who were raised by our grandparents. So you're a library student, you work in libraries.
Yes.
My question is, do you have a library card? If so, how many library cards do you have? That's what I like to ask librarians. How many cards do you actually have?
So okay, let me count. Okay, so I have so I actually have three.
Mm-hmm.
So they're for three different systems.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm in Houston. So Houston, like the Houston metropolitan area, it has different library systems.
Okay.
Everyone thinks they're all the same. That's always like the question. Then we get like, oh, I can't use this card here. No, this is a different system.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I have a Harris County Public Library card. I have a Houston Public Library card, and then I have a Brazoria County Library card.
Okay, yes, I love it. Come on, team library cards. I got 3 active cards too, girl. I feel so seen right now. I feel so seen. And I actually have 3 cards for the different counties surrounding me as well. I have one for DC Pub, and then I have one for Arlington County and one for Alexandria County. And I'm thinking about trying to get one in Maryland, and some, and maybe one in New York. I'm gonna see. I'm gonna have to look into that, see if I can. But I got a lot of library cards. I have had library cards everywhere I've lived. I've gotten a library card. So I have a lot of them, including my library. I consider my college IDs library cards as well. So I have those too. So, girl, I got a lot. So look, I know nobody is topping me in that area, and that's okay. I could be team too much all by myself. I'm cool with it. I'm okay with it. So for you, are you a digital or pen and paper type of person?
Um, so I feel like, as weird as it sounds, I'm a bit of both,
Oh, okay.
but it's in the respect of, so for me, like when I come in like for my work day and like when I have like different tasks like that, like now I'm noticing myself, like when it comes to organizing myself for the day and the different tasks, like
Mhm.
I'm pen and paper.
Okay.
Like I take like a pen and then I have an index card,
Mhm.
and say there are certain projects that I'm like working on and things like that. I
Mhm.
kind of write the project name or whatever it is, topic at the top,
Oh,
and
you.
then I'm writing down the tasks that needed to be completed. So then I kind of have like my index cards there at my desk, and then I'm going through and I'm just marking off. Um,
Oh yeah, you stepping right in fully into that librarian role, full deep.
yeah. So it's like, okay, like this is what I'm doing. But at the same time, like sometimes I
Mhm.
do find myself being digital, because if you if you look at my notes,
Yes.
you'll see ideas that I have and things like that. Because it'll either be like library program ideas, or maybe like ideas for my libraries, like social media and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I end up just, I don't have a pen and paper near me to
Right.
where I would write it down. So I end up just writing it down like in my notes in my phone, because I'm like, okay. And sometimes it's funny because like your ideas always aren't always gonna come at work. Like I can be walking or be off somewhere like out with friends and I see something and I'm like, oh, like that would be cool. And so then I start just like typing it down
Mhm.
just so I can like present it like later at my job. I'm like, well, what if we did this?
Yeah, don't worry. Look, we are in full support over here with the Notes app. I done told Apple, and I'm gonna keep saying it. Apple, if you want to sponsor me, by all means, I will be an advocate for the Notes app for y'all. I mean, listen, I will take some Apple money. I'm just telling y'all, if y'all ever see this in any type of Apple persons, whatever, if y'all looking for somebody to sponsor the Notes app, here, hi, I'm Bree. Here's me. Listen,
Yes.
listen, my Notes app gets plenty of love. And I am more digital, but I am kind of like, I guess, ambidextrous is what we would call it. Maybe, I don't know. I do use pen and paper to write out my budget every month. I have to write it out. That's the one thing that I physically write out every time I have to budget. I write it out. And I know some people will be like, well, wouldn't that be the thing that you want to do digitally? No.
Mhm.
I have to physically write out. I need to see on paper where my money is going. So I write my budget out every 2 weeks faithfully to see where my money is going and how it's being divvied out. Because listen, I don't want no discrepancies. I want to make sure everything is covered and we ain't got no time because ain't nobody got time to be outside. So my other icebreaker for you is, who's your favorite author or writer?
Um so
And it could be more than one.
okay. So I'm gonna say more than one. Usually for me, I'm reading like YA.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say like first off like Angie Thomas,
She is so,
um,
yeah, well
Nick,
loved here.
yes, Nick Stone.
Well loved here.
Um, let me see who else. Jason Reynolds.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. I'm like semi cheating right now because my bookshelf is that great over here. So I'm like, let me see. Like, it's like, who do I have the most of? Um, so yeah, I would say like they're like my top three because
Mhm.
they got me back into reading because I feel like you know how you go through that, I would say like that dry spell,
Yeah.
especially like when you're coming like out of college and all your reading was just for like classes and schoolwork and things like that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so it was like, you know, even as like I was a young adult in a sense, but like an older young adult, but like I just remember reading like The Hate You Give, and like I was just enraptured by that book. And so it just got me back. I feel like got me back into reading, like actually going to a bookstore, like perusing around, like picking up things to just read.
Yeah. Yeah. Jason Reynolds is actually, this is the first time he's popped up, but he is still also well loved here on the podcast. I do enjoy his writing. I think he's the national young ambassador for the Library of Congress right now. Super dope, super exciting. I got a chance to really get deep dive into some of his content, just watching some of the things that he's done at the library. And I enjoy how he does a really good job of engaging the youth and engaging children and stuff. So, but Angie Thomas and Nick Stone, well loved over here. Saving Dear Justice, Dear Martin, read those, both of those, very impactful books. I have not, I don't remember, I may have, but I don't remember reading The Hate You Give yet. I did see the movie, but I haven't read the book yet, but it is on my TBR. You know, we live for a good TBR.
Yes, ever growing in PBR.
Yes, I live for a good TBR. And I think I have some things in my collection, my home collection with that is by Angie Thomas though. And like I said, she has several books that are on my to be read list. And so I'm just super excited that you know you're back into reading, that you're loving reading, that you're fully engaged in that. I sympathize, empathize, and understand what you said about, you know, reading in undergrad and stuff like that. I've said on many episodes on this podcast, I had the bright idea to become an English major. And they had to try, they was trying to get me to read all them books. I said, who? Because it ain't finna be, it's not finna be me. I was spark noting it up, sis. I ain't gonna lie to you. I was spark noting it up, but I came out on top. God is good. So you're in library school. You have not fully become a full-fledged librarian. Tell me your story. How did you get to library school? How did you make that decision to say, oh, this is something that I see as a career? Was there someone that was a librarian that you looked up to or influenced? How did you get over here? How did you make this decision to say, I want to do this and this is what I want to do?
Um, so I would first off say, being a librarian, it was like not the first thing that I wanted to do with my life. It wasn't like I came like out of the womb or like graduated high school and I was like, I want to be a librarian. That was not how it was.
Right.
Honestly, originally coming out of high school, I was like, I'm gonna be a psychiatrist because like I fell in love with the psychology class that I had. And so I was like, I'm gonna go for that. I had researched, I was like, okay, I would major in this, but like I'm gonna try and be like on the
Mm-hmm.
pre-med route and everything because that's gonna be a specialty.
Right.
So I get to college though, and it's trying to do that, and it's like, okay, this isn't working out. And I'm just like, med school's not gonna be a thing that works out for me.
Oh my God. Black
Um,
wait for trying because
yeah,
no ma'am.
no. So I was like, okay, but I was like, I still enjoy psychology. Like, what can I do with this? Like, how can I use the study of psychology and make it applicable? So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go off and be a counselor.
Mhm.
So I went through undergrad, I majored in psychology and sociology, and then I went to graduate school.
Okay.
So, fun fact, I actually have another degree, or I actually already have like a master's. I have a master's in counseling.
Okay.
Yeah, so I
Oh,
went through,
I love double degrees over here. I'm for it. Be a young, educated Black woman. I'm for it, sis. I'm for it.
so I went through that and I was like, okay. And so then I like start working like in the field.
Okay.
And that's when I like when I'm working in the field, I'm kind of like, okay, like I don't think this is what I want to do. And I even have to say, like, even when I was in my master's, like towards the end, like there was a little doubt in me. I was like, do I still want to do this?
Right.
And I just want to say that just so like people will know it's okay to like have those little doubts. Like even when you're in the midst of your program, like that's okay.
Trust.
Like
Listen, trust. I understand.
to like have that. So I'm like, okay, but like I'm a person also like when I start something, I want to finish it.
Mhm.
So went through the program, finished it, graduated, got my degree, and then I started working. Well, when I started working, I was working as like a mental health caseworker
Mhm.
because the where I was working, it was going to allow me to get like my hours because you have your degree, but to be a fully like professional counselor, you have to get licensed, you have to
Clinical
get
hours.
admin hours, things like that. Yeah. But it was like in that job, like after a while, like I was just not happy. Like I was just at like a low point.
Mhm.
Um, I was very depressed. I was anxious. Um, with that job, full transparency, with that job, I got to the professional way, I got terminated from that job. But weirdly enough, it happened and people were like, "Are you okay? Like, are you okay?" And I was just like, "I'm fine." And I felt like it because it was like a relief for me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. And so then from there, I was like, okay, what am I going to do next? So I was like, immediately just started applying for jobs. So I was like, I need something. I mean, like, there's still bills to pay. Like, I need to get
Right.
something. Um, So for a minute there, I was thinking about like teaching. I started looking into like the alternative program and like was looking at that and like working on that.
Mhm.
And so while I was doing that, I was like substitute teaching, but I was also working at like Barnes and Noble.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, so I was
Much
doing
of
that.
my life is parallel. This is ridiculous. It's too much. Too much. But continue.
I was working at Barnes and Noble and substitute teaching. So I'm like, okay, and I'm going through it. But I was like, okay, I'm working these two part-time jobs. So I'm like, I need something. I was like, I need something else.
Mhm.
I need something full time. Like I need benefits, like that type of thing.
Yes, I
And,
need security. Period.
yes. And so I was like, okay, and I'm like, where? And then so I'm like, okay, where do I want to apply? So that's what I was thinking about. Like, where do I want to apply? Like, where do like I want to go to? And so I thought back to when I was in graduate school, and for a little period of time, I was working part-time in the library.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I enjoyed that, and that was something that I liked. And then I just also remember just when I was in that mental health casework job, and like I was hitting like those low moods and depression, I remember it was like a reading that kind of like brought me back.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I was like, I want to do something like in the library. Like I think that would be great. Like that would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've always wanted to work with like young people, like with youth.
Okay.
So I ended up applying. So then ended up getting a job with like the Houston Public Library, and I was a youth library service specialist.
Okay.
And from there, I was kind of like, okay, like I like this. And I was kind of like, at that point, I was kind of like, okay, I like this. But I was also, I knew like for me to kind of like to move up or to
Mm-hmm.
like be like a full-fledged librarian, like I need to go to library school.
Right.
So I worked that job, and then I ended up switching into the job I currently have now. And it was while working this job, I was kind of like, you know what, like I'm just gonna do it. Because I've been putting it off.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why don't I just do it? Why don't I just go through? Like I'll just apply, like just do it. And so I finally like ripped off that band-aid. Um, and so I applied for library school, and so that's where it started. I started in the fall of 2021, so the end
Okay.
of last year. Yeah.
So how much longer you have to graduation?
Um, I don't know yet. I'm still like
Okay.
figuring that out because it's very much like we're on our own. And for my classes, like I have them all like online. So it's very much me like being self-paced. It's like you check in with the advisors like here and now and things like that. So I don't know just yet. I also am being transparent. I will say like for like this past semester, I did have to like take a step back and take a break
Right.
just because like personal things were going on and just it was overwhelming and it felt too much.
Mhm.
But I am planning like I'm gonna be back in the fall.
Okay,
So
well, I mean, listen, it's better to take care of yourself than to not take care of yourself until you get to that point of crisis. We don't want that. And as a counselor, you know that all too well. And
yeah.
part like I said, our life is super parallel. This is a little scary. Like I have two bachelor's degrees. I have one in English and one in psychology. So in undergrad, I was an English major and a psych major. I also worked at Barnes and Noble for very temporary parts for part time temporarily, maybe 3 years ago. Enjoyed it. Might actually try to go back to work there just so I can get the discount, because I like to do discount. Yeah, listen, I'm just gonna be honest about me. I might try to go back so I can get this discount. And I did enjoy working there. And then I too had decided whether or not I originally wanted to do like counseling stuff. I wanted to go to law school, decided
Mhm.
not to do law school. Then I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll become a counselor or a clinical researcher. I was like, I don't want to take the GRE. So maybe I'll just do social work. And so it was between social work and librarian school. And then I had a librarian. She was like, well, I got a job at the library. She was like, well, I'm going to convince you to go to library school. And she didn't have to do too much convincing because I was already making those decisions anyway. And for a long time, I didn't even know that, you could go to school to be a librarian. And so when I did that research, I was like, oh, I can go to school to be a librarian. I ain't got to take the GRE. I'm so, like y'all just do it based off of my GPA and all of that. So I was like, okay, cool. So she didn't have to do too much convincing. I also did my library degree online. With our program, however, our program is basically a virtual classroom. So even though I'm taking it online from anywhere, I still have to be present for those however many hours the class was. And we had instructors, we had all of that. So I actually thoroughly enjoyed it because I was kind of weary about whether or not I wanted to do an online program, because I know for me, it would be hard for me to kind of focus in that type of environment. But it worked out for me for what it worked out. Now I'm a little bit different. I can do online courses and do self-paced and stuff like that. But at the time, I was like, yeah, that's not going to fly for me. So I was grateful that my program was set up the way that it was. Amazing teachers, amazing programs. I think it was number one. I don't know if it's still number one. It was the number one program when I was going there in the country. And so I was super excited about that. And low key, I almost quit library school because they do at the beginning of this program, and I don't know if they still do it. They do this boot camp where you take a full course in 1 week. And that course was rough. And it almost knocked me out. And I was just like, I remember calling my grandmother and I was like, Grandma, this is hard. This is rough. I didn't pay my money. We didn't pay this money to get me here. Because at the time you had to travel for just that 1 week. You had to go up to the campus to stay on, to basically stay near campus to go through this boot camp. They eventually stopped making people come. They were ahead of the curve when it came to COVID things and stuff like that. It was way before COVID. But I think the last group that they required to come to campus. But I remember calling my grandmother, and this is exclusive. I don't think I've ever told anybody this story. So I remember calling my grandmother and I was saying to her, Grandma, I don't think that this is going to work. I think I'm going to come home. I think I'm going to be done. I'm not, this is like way more than what I, signed up for. This is really rough. I was just having a tough time. And I also think that I was also bumping up against some racism a little bit, some prejudices and things of that nature that was happening there as well, because the library world, the library profession is not, even though our core job is to create diverse spaces and things of that nature, we're still not far from having discriminatory practices and prejudices and things of that nature, in the profession. And so I do feel like there were some things that were happening also that were kind of like not necessarily beneficial to my success that were happening at the time. And so I remember calling her, I was crying. I think I was in my car and I was just having a moment. And she was just like, basically she encouraged me and she was like, you have never been a person to give up on anything. Like, and she was like, just, okay, you're a little uncomfortable with what we doing. Basically, my grandma was like, no. You didn't spend this money, we didn't pay this money, you know, all of these different. She's like, no, we're not doing that. See it through. You can get through it. And so I did. I got through it. And I ended up graduating in a year and a half because I was like, I'm not going to be here forever. And I don't have that kind of money. I'm trying to get in and out of here. I'm not trying to accumulate extreme amounts of debt. I already got debt. You know what I'm saying? And so it was just a whole thing. I literally almost didn't make it through the first week of the program. But once I got past that, it was full sailing from there. Excellent courses, excellent class spaces, things of that nature. But it was a whole thing. But I do remember that being a part of the journey. That it's not easy, but anything we do in life is never easy. It's just your capacity, your tenacity about getting it done and doing it successfully. So I understand that. I do understand that sometimes you need to take breaks and you need to take frequent breaks. And life don't stop happening because we want to be successful. It keeps going. Things keep happening. And so I still had to do life. I still had to go forward because I was only working a part-time job in a library at the time. And then since we here, just tell my whole story. Since we're being honest and transparent, I had my boss's boss was making it difficult at the time for me to be successful too, because I was working a part-time job and I actually wasn't even working 30 hours a week. They were only giving me 29 hours a week because if they gave me 30, they would have had to give me benefits. The things we do to keep from people having, a good life, a better life. And so they didn't want to give me they only gave me 29 hours because at the 29th hour, then you could prevent you from having to pay, of course, health insurance and all of those different things. So I only was working 29 hours a week, but they wanted me there every day. I had no off days. I was working Monday through Friday, 29 hours a week. And then I was the person that was the nighttime manager. And so I was working from like I would come in at like 12 o'clock. First off, if you know me and you're getting to know me, I am not really afternoon, evening type of person. I rather get up with the birds chirping, what I got to do, and then be done by 3 or 4 o'clock. Girl, they had me coming in. So I'm already irritated because I've accepted this job anyway because I had a need at the time. So I had to take that position because I was unemployed. Um, and so was just fresh out of undergrad. It was like, and then I was like a month later, I was unemployed and then I needed a job. And this is the job that presented itself. In the interview and everything, I made it clear in the interview process that I plan to go back to school. Made it clear. I didn't go in there. I didn't lie to nobody. I didn't pretend like I made it clear from day one that I plan to go back to school. So I'm grateful to get this part-time job, but let it be known that my schedule will probably need to adjust at some point because I plan to go back to school. I guess they thought that I was lying to them when I said what I said when I said it, because people just don't be, I guess people think that, nobody's really that straightforward, things might change. No, when I tell you I'm going to do something, more than likely I'm going to do the thing that I told you because I consider myself to be a person that walks in integrity. And so a year later, like I said, I applied for schools and stuff like that. And I got into the school. I'm not even gonna tell y'all what her race and stuff was. And because I don't want nobody to be, judging. It wasn't a and it wasn't, I will say that she was not white. Let's just make that clear. The person that was giving me this hard time, the person that advocated for me to get into the program, however, was a white woman. Appreciate her, loving boss, great. But the person who was giving me this hard time was not a white woman. And so I just want to make that clear, because sometimes we be thinking like, oh, it's always, no. Sometimes it be people that might look like me that might give me a hard time trying to navigate through life and through being successful. So she literally told my boss, like, oh, we can't afford her to, or we can't allot her to be able to take classes, because I had to work my class schedule around my work schedule. And so I was like, okay, well, then I'll just try to take night classes, but some of the classes that at work required for me to get my degree were only offered during the day. And so I was trying to get some adjustments going to my schedule and stuff. She would make it very hard for me to get any adjustments. Then on top of that, they decided to extend the hours. And then now I don't want to say that it was intentionally done, but they decided to extend the hours. And so now when I would traditionally work from this time to this time, now I have to be here later because you've decided all of a sudden that you want to extend the nighttime hours, but you still don't want to give me more than 29 hours a week. You won't, you know what I'm saying? So, and nobody wants to adjust their schedule. Not the full-time people that work here that get benefits and stuff like that. They don't want to change their schedule. Nobody wants to make these adjustments for them to at least take one night a week. Girl, it was a whole thing. So I was going through all of this while also trying to get my library degree. And so like when I say I got a story to tell about the things that I've been through, listen, as the songwriter says, but yeah, so that was a whole thing, but I navigated through that. Then on top of that, in the midst of me being in library school, I get laid off.
Oh my
The
gosh.
state of Illinois starts going through this, that was during that time when they start going through these budget issues and stuff like that. So the part of the job that I'm working is grant funded. Naturally, we're going to cut all of the grant programs out to try to save on the budget. So then I get laid off. Then I have to go through these whole situation of, now the state of Illinois doesn't want to give me unemployment because I'm a full-time student. And as a full-time student, you don't qualify for it. It was a whole ordeal. I was laid off. So that last semester of my library degree, I was laid off so I had been laid off for like 6 months.
Oh my God.
So my last semester of my library school, I had no job. So from like November to May, I didn't work for 6 months. I was just in school. So I'm trying to figure out how to pay bills, all of these different stuff, and I'm a Christian. So by the grace of God, things did get taken care of. I wouldn't be where I am now without that story. But, and then I moved on from there. I graduated from library school, and then I end up getting this internship, and I got an internship, worked there for a year, and then things have been of course, there have been some things there, but things have been progressing from that point on. But so I said all that to say I understand where you are,
Yes.
and I understand your story, understand what the things that you have to kind of like navigate through as you go through library school. So it's I guess this is to encourage people that to know that it's not going to be perfect, but if your ultimate goal is for you to become a librarian, you never know when those stories might help one of your customers as they come into the library. You never know how something that you've been navigating through or you've been dealing with might help one of the patrons or whatever that you're working with, whoever you're working with, which has been beneficial because I know stuff now, and as a librarian, it's all about gathering information. It's all about, having an arsenal that you can pull from to help customers and to help people, which makes it essential for people like us who know struggle, who know things that they've had to navigate through to be in those spaces. So for you, I'm gonna navigate us into another question. You work in libraries now, you still
Mhm.
you're in school, you're in the process. As a person who works in a public library system,
Mhm.
what does or what would you consider your ideal library to look like? What would your ideal library look like?
Ugh.
Whatever you got to say, lay it out
Um, uh, Ideal library space. First off, I would say all I can say is big. I can't really say like exact like square footage
there. That's all
and
right.
things like that. But I would just say I want to say just like big. I mean, if it happens to be like a couple stories, that's fine. If it's just one level, that's fine. But I just think big to where I feel like where there can be spaces for people. Somewhere where there's like a lot of computers, we have like a lot of shelf space.
Mhm.
We have like study rooms and meeting rooms available for people. Um, I think it'd be cool. I haven't seen this. I really haven't seen it yet. I mean, someone can correct me and maybe they can tell me, but like if there was kind of like a performance space,
Oh,
um, like in a library, like I think that would be really cool because like sometimes I think about how like I think it'd be cool to just like bring something like to bring performances to the library just so
that's nice.
people can experience like something different. And with the library, like it's always going to be for free, so it's like you get to experience live music for free, or maybe like theater or anything like that for free. I like to have that. I think it'd have like a maker space, because we have that at like the location I work at, and it's been pretty cool to like just go through and like learn like the different machines.
Yeah.
um have it filled with like charging stations because that's always needed. um Maybe have the children's space
Oh.
like off by itself a little bit just because they get a little loud. And like people, I think when people think of the library, they still think of that like where you're like
Yes.
like everything is quiet, and it's just like no, that's like not how it
Libraries
goes.
are
Like
supposed to be noisy in my mind. They're
yeah.
supposed to be active. Nobody want to come in no dead space. I mean, it's okay to have like a quiet room or something like that,
Mhm.
but it needs to feel like there's life. It's something happening in here.
Yeah, so it's just like
Church.
so it's like have that so they can kind of just I feel like freely just like be able to make that noise. um and then wherever the library would be located, I think it'd be great if it could be located near just like I don't know if I would guess say like a field or like a park, to
Okay.
just be able to have like some of that green space.
Okay, got you.
Because there's because I'm in the city, right? So in being in the city, there's like a lot of like concrete and things like
Yeah,
that and like hard surfaces.
yeah,
But I feel like it'd be nice to be able, if like we were able to just like have like a green space. Cause it stinks sometimes whenever like say I think about something, I'm like, oh, this would be cool. And I'm like, oh, we could do this outside. But then it's like we can't, where we're located, we can't do it directly outside. We're surrounded by like parking lot. So
yeah,
it's like, okay, where's like the closest park,
right.
and going through that whole process of like asking them like for permission and things like that, like is it okay, like a blessing, like can we do this over here. So my ideal library, it would also like there would be like either a park or like a green space
Hmm.
near.
That's nice.
So yeah, so if I could find a library that has like all of those things, I feel like I'd be set.
I'm pretty sure there's one out there. I know that one of my favorite library branches, a part of the system that I'm um, a patron of, it actually is attached to a theater. It's not, I don't think they do, I don't think they do free programming at the theater, but it's attached to a theater. So it's they're in the same building. So it's an extension of it. And I think that that's really cool because that was the first time that I've ever seen something like that where the library is next door to like a live theater. Where they do shows and plays and stuff. I haven't actually booked a play or went to see one of the plays yet, but I plan to because I love live theater. I do. So a woman after my own heart. So I would definitely attend your library. I'd be like, I'm all in here. It's nice. This is nice. Like they got the live music. Show me something. I would love it. Thoroughly enjoy it. And I that's some of the things that I like about that the Library of Congress does because they have this type of programming where they do the Gershwin Prize. They have live Arthur talks and stuff like that. And sometimes they do. I think during the summer they do like music fest and things of that nature. So it's really nice. And it's nice to be near it and be adjacent to it. And so moving on to I guess our next question. That was a good answer. Good answer. Um, I don't want to ask that question. I think I want to ask you, how can a librarian positively impact their community? What do you think that they can
um I think to positively impact their community,
do? Mhm.
I feel like they need to be someone that's willing to like to listen.
Yes.
I think they need to be someone that's willing to be like an active listener, because I think like first off, like without that, like I don't think you're gonna be able to like meet the needs of the community. Because as libraries, that's like essentially who we're serving, is like the community that's surrounding us.
Yes.
So I think you need to be able to be an active listener. I think you need to be someone who's able to be adaptable to
Mhm.
any type of situations that arise. I think you need to be someone that kind of is ahead of the curve in a sense.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of on the trend of like what's going on and what's happening. And I think you also need to be someone like that's personable. You need to build upon like your connections that you have in the community. Like I think that's important. Like it's like outreach is an important thing, I think, for a library, and it helps you connect with your community, because there are some people, they're not going to be able to like make it out to that building. The building can be beautiful and great, but there are some people, they're just not going to make it out to that. But just going out there and meeting people where they're at, and I feel like just treating them like with respect,
Yeah.
treating them how they want to be treated. um just being like empathetic, being understanding, just being compassionate. I think those are the things and ways in which like a librarian is going to be, I would say like successful, can be successful with their community. Because I remember from one of my classes, I think they talked about, and I don't think I ever thought about it, but like kind of like when you want to try to build kind of like a reciprocal relationship
Hmm.
like with your community and who you're serving. So it's kind of like I feel like because we serve them, they help us stay around.
Yes,
because they help, but they, they're kind of like the justification, like this is why we're here.
exactly.
But then we also need to extend like whatever services and resources that we can to them.
I agree.
So I feel in that way, like you just kind of build upon like that reciprocal relationship. Like we serve you, and then like you serve us in the sense that you give us the justification to be here.
I agree. I completely agree. Most libraries are state funded, which means that people are paying their taxes. So you want to make sure that you're creating programming, you're creating things that will directly impact that community. And how important do you think library programming is in that regard? Um,
So it's like with my title, I'm a library program specialist. So it's like she should think it's pretty important. Um, but even like, but I feel like even like without this title, I think that programming is important because programming is how you get people in the building. Programming is how you serve the community. Programming is how you entertain, educate, and engage. And that's something that I learned from like one of my coworkers. Like he told me that he's like, when you're looking at your programming, you like look at certain factors, and it's like, what is it that we're trying to do here? Like, are we trying to entertain? Are we trying to engage with them? Are we trying to like educate them? So I feel like programs can are important, because when you take outside of what people usually come in for, because these are just my observances from a daily.
mhm.
So most people, they come in, they want to use the computer, they're wanting to check their email, they're wanting to scan, they're wanting to make copies. They're coming in, picking up like their holds, checking out books, checking
Right.
out DVDs, CDs.
Mhm.
Okay, so we have those things.
Right.
But then like you also have programs that can be integral for like a person's development. So for me, like one of the programs that I do, I co-lead like a baby time. I do
Really?
that like every yeah, and I do that like every other week. I love it. It's one of like the joys of my week when I have it that week. Um, but I feel like something like as baby time, like that's important. They're sitting here and they're learning rhymes and like finger plays. We try to incorporate like sign language. So that's helping like with those fine motor skills.
Yeah.
But also like because if you look at like the past 2 years, we've been in COVID, we've been in a pandemic.
Right.
Some of these like babies, they've been in these pandemic times.
Yes.
So there's also the fact that like they haven't been able to like see other people
Through their
and
social.
to like and to socialize. And that's integral. That's important because as humans, we're social beings.
Yes.
And so I feel like for me, like it's been great to see like some of these babies like slowly like open up and they're starting to become like more social. They're not clinging on to like mom,
Yeah.
as much anymore. Like now, like they're actually like, they're smiling, like they're happy like to see like Miss Jasmine, or like, they're smiling like at this other baby, like, oh, like who are you? Like, hey. So
Like, hello, other person that's small like me.
yeah. So, it's like when I think of that, like I think that's important. Like we're starting up like the children's librarian there, he's training like the family place libraries. We're going to start having that. That's going to just allow children to play. We're going to be bringing in like different specialists, like a speech pathologist and a pediatrician, and
Okay.
they all get to come in and like they'll introduce themselves, and it allows them to just kind of mingle with the members of like the community. But then it also allows those community members like to ask any like questions like they may have
Yeah.
in regards to like their child's development. And for some people, like that may be like the only chance, like maybe they get with someone who
Yeah.
specializes in something like that, or maybe that can be like the tipping point
Absolutely.
for them to look into like what is actually going on like with my child. um we also have like the tax services right now. I consider that a program, like free tax services, that's a program. The ESL classes, I consider that a program, that's important. Citizenship classes, that's important, I consider that a program. um just things like that, like I'm like, I think programs are important because I think programs are also what continue to bring people around, because for some people they might not be coming for a book, but they're coming for that baby time, or they're coming for that citizenship class.
Mhm.
They're coming for those things, and people need that. um any type of way that we can, I feel like, provide like services for people, like let's do that. Like for me and my mom, when I do programs, like I want them to be like fun programs. I'm more of like a fun person. I love to educate.
Yeah.
Education is important.
Right.
um but I also like us to like have fun
Gotta
too.
have fun. Yeah.
You gotta have fun, and I just think that's important, and I think everyone should be able to have access to be able to have fun.
Yeah.
I'm also a person, I think, because of like my counseling background, like I want people to be able to like have resources and to know of resources. So if we are ever able to like get in touch with anyone in the community where they can come in and people can ask them questions, let's do things like that, because this person may not be able to do that.
Exactly. Exactly. And I agree with you. And I'm glad that you guys have all of those amazing resources available to your customers. I'm trying to train myself to say customers now, because I know the library world is switching over their wording and stuff, and it's hard to get away from traditionally saying patrons and stuff like that. And
Yes.
that word customers, I'm like customers, customers, customers. I have to think about it so I can get it out because the we're changing. We're trying to, because they are in many ways our customers. And to me, I feel like patrons just a little bit more fancy and formal. But I understand it. I understand the need to try to switch it over, but I'm getting there. I'm a work in progress. So as we prepare to kind of like wind down this hour, first off, thank you for being here. This has been an amazing and enlightening conversation, and I have really thoroughly enjoyed myself this entire time. But I do have two more questions for you. One question is, growing up, did you see librarians who looked like you?
So, growing up, I grew up in a small East Texas town.
Okay.
There was only one library. I only saw one librarian that looked like me.
Really?
Um, her name, her name was Miss Andrea.
Okay. Hey, Miss
She was
Andrea.
right. I know. I'm like, if she ever sees that she's out there, hey. Um, yeah, I only saw one.
Okay.
And so it was just her. And so that's all I've seen and known. She was very sweet. She always helped me, like with my projects and things like that, whenever I had like printing and stuff. And I feel like she even like helped me, when I used to volunteer at the library for like service hours and things like that when I was in school.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, like so from growing up, she is like the only one I remember like that looked like me.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's, I'm actually grateful that you have one, because a lot of people have come on and they was like, no, I haven't really. And I thought, it was like, I know I was very fortunate because I grew up watching and seeing Black librarians all around me. Um, I had no clue at the time that at some point I would actually become one of them, become a part of this elite squad of librarians. But it was nice to see that, because I do recognize that a lot of people are not fortunate enough. And when you look at the statistics and demographics of this field, you see that, we're short in number, we're small in number, especially when it comes to Black people who
Mhm.
are actively working in this role, which kind of transitions me into my last question: is what is one thing, or two if you have it, but what is one thing you believe the profession can do better in terms of creating a DEI work environment?
Whew. Um, I guess I feel like I feel like one thing I would say,
Go
uh,
ahead, girl. Say what you got to say.
it's like trying it's like trying to choose my words because like, okay, how
It's
are you?
a safe space. You safe here. Go ahead.
I guess I would say to maybe like incorporate training that I feel that will actually stay with people and that will actually engage people, and for it to not just be like, say, like a video. like if we actually have like maybe like workshops and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
um I feel like that would help in creating that like DE and I like space in libraries. And then I also feel like when it comes to like these matters, I feel like there should be either like a safe space or possibly like maybe someone like appointed that say when these matters happen or something regarding these matters happens like within our system, there's someone that like we can turn to or like that we can come to. And I feel like someone's gonna say like, oh, like that'll be like HR, and I'm kind of like,
No.
like, and I'm kind of like, but also like that also depends, and like depending on like what system you work in, whether they're actually going to handle that. So it's just, I feel like that, and maybe possibly just starting to have just like more committees like surrounding that.
Yeah.
And I think just having more of a discussion of like when we look at DEI, I feel like especially like when we're looking at like diversity, like, like an inclusion, like what all does that entail? Because I feel like when people, so I feel like say, because I feel like working on it to myself and like learning diversity and inclusion. It's like, okay, so what does this look like? I feel like the main thing people go to is like, oh, like race. And it's like, okay, like it's not just race. There's like race, there's culture, there's socioeconomic status, there's like disability status, there's like sexuality, there's like all these different
Mm-hmm.
encompassing things when we're talking about this.
Yes.
So I feel like it's trying to, I feel like kind of break people away from like whenever it's just like observing people and just seeing them and they're like, oh, like diversity, and it's like
Oh,
I
just more
feel like
black
they
people, just more these, Asian people, just more Latin people. No, it's not just about that. It's about really fostering an environment where all kinds of people can come, feel safe, feel secure, don't feel profiled. There's some sensitivity there, there's some grace, some compassion about the folk that are in that space. So yeah, I understand, but continue with everything else that you had to say, girl. Let it all out. Say what you got to say.
um but yeah, I just feel like just making a space for that, because I will say like in my position right now, I'm a part of a committee, and it's called like the Inclusivity and Programming Committee.
Okay.
And I like it because it's nice, because what we're trying to do is basically kind of build, I'm not going to say database, that's not the right word, but kind of like build up these referrals and resources so
Mhm.
people have them there, so that they're able to say like bring different types of programming like to the library and like throughout the library system.
Mhm.
It's trying to make sure that all of these say like different groups, that they're being included and that they're being highlighted like within the programs that we provide to our communities.
Gotcha.
So it's like breaking it down where like, okay, someone's gonna look at this, or someone's gonna look at this, and someone's gonna look at this. And so
Mhm.
it's going through and doing like the research so that we can have those things, so that different groups can be highlighted.
Mhm.
Um, you can't just stick to like one group and
Right.
think like, oh, okay, like, oh, we're covered, like we're good. Like, no, there's multiple layers to it, you
Yeah.
know.
Absolutely.
So
I fully agree with you on all of it, all the things that you just said. And I definitely agree that there needs to be, although we are making progress, you understanding that the surface level is not as far as you can take it. Because during the height of the pandemic and all of these different things, even though all of this stuff was happening prior to that, there was like a rush to like for everybody to jump on board to create and foster these diverse, equity, inclusive spaces. Everybody was putting out their memorandums. Everybody was putting out their banners across their job boards and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, that's cool. But are you really doing it? Or are you just writing this stuff down on paper so it'll look good, so it'll look nice? But how are you actually rechanging and reorganizing and restructuring your infrastructure to make sure that this is not something that you're just saying, but you're not actually doing? And so those are the questions. Those are the questions that I want answers to. Yeah.
No, exactly, because I would love to do like a check-in, and I think that's something that probably needs to happen too, is to kind of just have like annual check-ins to just
Mhm.
see like where are we in terms of like these goals that we stated at such and such time. Where are we in terms of this, like what progress like have we made towards this? I
Mhm.
think you need to do a check-in with that,
Mhm.
because it is kind of like you said. I remember when it was at the height of everything and everyone was coming out with all these statements and everyone was want to put a rush and like to do all of these things, and it's just kind of like, okay, like
Mhm.
thank you for the show, but when's the real work going to begin? When is the real progress going to happen? What are we actually doing to move towards that?
Yes, girl, listen. But we'll be here all night talking about this. So, and I don't want us to be here. I'm gonna get off my soapbox because I fully agree with you and I stand with you, sis, on that. And like I said, Jasmine, thank you so much for coming. Do you have any social media sites or anything that you would want anybody to follow you at? Please drop it now and let the people know.
So we'll say I do have like a Bookstagram account.
Yeah,
It's called,
am I already following you?
I think you are, maybe. It's called A Trip Through the Pages.
I feel like I might be following you and didn't realize it. Let's if not, I'm about to follow you now. You said a trip through.
A Trip Through the Pages. It should be me in like a little yellow dress. That's my current profile picture.
Okay, I'm gonna look for you. It's through is spelled THROUGH.
Yes, yes. I spelled it all the way through.
Okay, so it didn't pop up for me. We're gonna have to find you on Bookstagram.
I should be, I know I'm following you.
If you following me, then I'm gonna look through my followers because what we ain't finna do is that. We ain't finna do that. We're not gonna not follow you. Mm,
Oh, okay. I do have, okay, so it's like underscore
ah,
through the pages underscore. Sorry, my bad, everybody.
listen. Jasmine's trying to have us out here. Jasmine's trying to have us out. I'm like, girl, I don't see you. That's so funny. But okay, so I'll find it and I'll yes, I am following you.
Okay.
Girl, I didn't realize that was you, Jasmine. Oh my God. Well, hello. We've met online already. That's so funny. Thank you. So I'm gonna make sure that that's at the bottom and that people will be able to follow you. And y'all go follow her Bookstagram. Stop playing. Go follow her Bookstagram. But as always, like I said, thank you so much. Thank you
Thank you
so
for
much
having
for being here.
me.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, y'all. Have a good weekend. Thanks for watching.